What's up, everybody? This is Phil Rogacki.
And I'm Jared Abergina.
You're listening to Two Tree Guys Podcast. What's up, everybody? Phil Rogacki with another episode of 2TG. What's up? Glad everybody's listening in today. Wherever you're at in the world, hope you have a safe, wonderful, most awesome day out there. But today I'm going to be bringing you a talk that a lot of you guys may not understand, because I'm also one of those guys that didn't understand it and needed to ask a lot of questions. So hopefully we're able to get a lot of these questions answered for you today. But we're going to be doing a training talk, and we're going to be talking about understanding insurance, getting signed up. Understanding it all. In 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to understand the whole world. But, you know, how to get insurance, what to look for. Is it a good price, bad price? We're going to be breaking it all down with a founder and president, Eric Petersen from Arborist. But before we get into that, if this is the first time you guys ever listened to the episode, we got many different types of episodes. We have training talk, which you're going to hear today. We have our gear talk, where we bring in different products and break it down and how it was made and what's good, what's bad, you know, comparison out there. We have our safety talk, talking about real life incidents that happen in our industry, how to fix those, how to control those in the future and mitigate it from ever happening again. We have your What's Your Story, where we bring in different people in the industry, and everybody has a unique story that they get to share. And then our full length. If you're in California, you're in our studio, we'll sit down with you, have a lot of fun for an hour to 2 hours and talk about whatever we want to talk about here. But we have a fee to the show, and that fee is, if you guys are listening to this show today and you got something out of it, if you laughed, if you learned something, the only way this show grows is you guys must share the show. That is the fee. What do I mean by share it? Put it on your Facebook, put it on your Instagram, put it on your Snapchat, your TikTok, your whatever it is that you guys have. Put it out there. Tag us in it so we can repost it. Tell the world, because not everybody knows about this podcast. And this podcast is made for you. So help us grow this podcast there. So, all right, let's dive right in. Training talk, understanding insurance with Eric Petersen. What's up, man?
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're becoming a veteran on the show, huh?
I guess so. You keep calling me back, so all right. Must be all right.
So let's dive right into this. Let me set this up. Opening a new company, there's a lot of unknowns. There isn't, that I found with opening different companies, I don't have a step-by-step roadmap.
Sure.
Or somebody that directed me to where that is. And one of the biggest parts is on this, not only coming up with the name and, oh, I got to build a website and I got to get an EIN and what's my contractor's license and I have to go take a contractor's test, and then, okay, what about equipment? Okay, how do I store it? Oh, I got to create SOPs. Do I need employees? What? The biggest one that you can't operate without, are you licensed? Are you insured?
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
I need to be insured. And you're going, okay, who do I call? I'm like, oh, well, I only know Farmers and State Farm, whatever's on TV. Let me call them and ask them if they can insure me.
Sure.
Right? And I don't know what coverage I need. I don't know if the price is good. So let's dive in and let's talk about understanding how not only to get insurance, how insurance works.
Sure.
How does it work with working with someone like you and other companies that are out there? Who are you going after as, you know, kind of finding the right provider? But give us a guide from the start
Sure.
all the way till I know I'm taken care of and protected if any incidents may happen from me.
That's a massive topic, right?
Massive. We only have 8 minutes. Go.
All right,
No.
go. Well, to start with, insurance as a concept is, they call it the law of large numbers. People pool their money into the insurance company to pay for claims that they're going to have, or hopefully don't have, but may have. So that's the very first thing to know. The insurance company is promising to pay for your mistakes, right? So when the insurance company is pricing the policy for you, they're going to price it based on the fact that they don't think you're going to be the one to have the claim. And if you can prove to them that you're not going to be the one to have the claim, you're going to get a lower price. We'll get back to that.
Okay.
So the concept is that the insurance company is you're going to pay a small dollar figure to recoup a much bigger cost of a claim later on.
Okay.
When we're talking to tree care companies or any company really buying insurance, there's 5 areas that I like to hit on. You think about your stuff, the easy things right away. What do you own? What equipment do you own? In the tree care world, would that be all your ropes and harnesses and carabiners and everything, up to chippers and stump grinders or whatever the equipment is. Second thing would be your vehicles, right? Are you driving your personal vehicle, or are you driving a company truck? Did you buy a truck in the company's name? Either way, you got to make sure that insurance is covering it the right way. Then we look at your people. Are you going to have, employees? Are you going to have subcontractors? How does that work? All right. And then
I want to know more about that one when we get to that point, when we start breaking down, because that's important. Because a lot of times someone's starting off, they may not be able to hire people, but they may be using subs. And how does that insurance work, and what does it look like? Okay.
Big time. So your people isn't just the generic term for it. Think about other people. That's your general liability. What if you damage or injure someone else?
That's number 4.
Yep. And the last one is probably should be number 1, but yourself. What happens if you're on the job and you cut your leg off with a chainsaw? Now you can't do the job anymore.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately a lot of people miss that one. But those are the 5 areas that we talk about.
Okay.
And we just break it down and walk through it.
Somebody calls you, you're going to be breaking down each one of those and asking questions about it.
We do it in a conversation manner, but we're going to go through those five areas.
Let's talk about the equipment. What kind of things do you have now? What kind of things you're going to have in the future?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Vehicles. What are you driving now?
Yeah.
What do you plan on in the next year of having? Subcontractors, people, are you hiring someone this year, or are you just going to be working with all subs and owner operator?
Yep.
Other people, if an accident happens in a park or on a house or something, and you happen to injure somebody or somebody else is involved, how do we cover you and other people?
Yep.
And then yourself, how do we take care of you as an individual person from that? Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. So from your equipment standpoint, that's easy because everyone wants to talk about what they have.
Yeah.
Right. So we can insure it on inland marine. Weird insurance name. When insurance was started, it was marine insurance. When the boats were coming across from Europe over to the United States, it was marine insurance.
That was first kind of insurance.
Yeah. When they got on land, now it was no longer on the water, so they called it inland marine, and they've never changed the name.
Uh-huh.
So it means it covers it wherever you go.
Okay. Got it.
So inland marine coverage, equipment coverage is that part of it.
And that's your chippers.
Yep.
But not your bucket trucks or anything.
Correct.
Okay,
right.
So chippers, tools, you cover all their tools in the sense they have a GRCS, they have all their tools in their trucks, their chainsaws, everything.
And it's really up to them. Do they want to pay a small insurance premium in case the whole lot gets stolen, or your truck overturns and you lose all your saws and everything? Or do you want to self-insure it?
And you give an adjustment of like, hey, here's you want to pay more here.
Right.
Here's what we're going to cover you on.
And if you're looking at a rough estimate across the country, $5,000 of tools and equipment coverage is usually $300 to $400 a year.
Okay. So someone's like, yeah, no problem.
Right.
And then that's spread out throughout the whole year.
Yep.
Or each month.
Depending on your policy.
Okay.
Yep.
So we talk about equipment. That goes from all the tools in the trucks, your chipper, stump grinder. What other kind of tools are they covering that you see?
In the bigger company, the mini lifts.
Okay.
Right? Big
mini
time.
lifts, skid steers,
loaders, all that stuff. Yeah.
Attachments, all the attachments, individual.
Yep.
Okay.
So all that stuff could be part of it. And really what we want to make sure that you as the client understands is you can self-insure it if you want to take on that risk of replacing it if something happens to it. But just do it consciously.
Yeah.
Not, I thought you were going to write me a check for that, Eric. No, we didn't agree to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the key with that.
Okay. And do you have a lot of companies that self-insure?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
On the small equipment? They're like, hey, I don't want to do it for $300.
For sure.
And then they self-insure, and then the first time everything gets stolen, they're like, oh, shit.
And then we say, here, remember that piece of paper you signed? Sorry, man.
Yeah.
No,
and this is where you come as a good coach to be like, listen, 9 out of 10 times guys do this for this reason. You need to self-insure this.
Right. Yep.
Gotcha. So cars and vehicles.
Yeah, the biggest thing is how is the vehicle titled? We see it all the time. People will get into business driving their personal truck.
Okay.
And that's fine. But now your personal assets, because your personal names on that truck are tied to that job that you're doing. So if you're hauling the stump grinder or you have logs in the back of the truck and the log flips out, you're on the job, right, for your company, but it's your personal name on that vehicle, your personal assets are going to be tied into that lawsuit because that truck or that log bounced through and hit the family of 4 behind you, right?
Oh, shit.
So how is the vehicle titled? And if you haven't set up a LLC at minimal, do so and get those vehicles into the LLC name.
Now, do you make sure before you're insuring somebody like that they have an LLC? Or will you insure a company without even a company?
You can do it just as an individual, right, as a sole proprietorship, but we need to make sure, one, that we're asking that question, that we coach them to get the LLC. It's a better business way to go.
Now, will you guys help them with giving the direction of getting an LLC and how to go down that route?
In a little way, like, usually you just file with the state, whatever state you're in.
Okay.
We're not attorneys, so we don't actually do it for you.
Yeah.
But they're pretty easy to get set up, LLCs.
Yeah, they are. And I know sometimes when some of these guys, they haven't even opened a laptop up before, they're like, holy shit, where do I begin? It's scary.
Right.
Guys, it's not scary.
It's okay.
You got plenty of people around you that have started companies. Just ask them, where do I go? And there's usually, you can contact probably the city and they will direct you, public information. Here's how you start a business license. Here's how you start a company. They have some of those resources to help you, to reach out.
Yep.
So that's such a good point, talking about vehicles. Is it pretty easy to get it turned over or switched over to your company name rather than your personal?
Yes, if you don't have a loan. If you have a loan on the truck, then you have to deal with whoever's financing the truck, and that can be a little trickier.
Okay.
So that's okay when you're starting out. But just know that on your insurance policy, we need to list your personal name as additional insured. So that covered. You have covered.
So smart. This is, a log comes off that truck or something happens. All of a sudden they're taking your house. They're taking all this stuff when you thought it was covered because you have a company, but it's your own personal truck.
Right. And then I take it a step further. When you get an employee, you want to make sure that truck's in the LLC name. You don't want the employee. You don't want Eric as your employee going to mess up your personal assets because I got in an accident.
And what about when they're driving their personal car? So you hire an employee and say, hey, you have your own truck.
Yep.
You need to show up on the job site. When they leave their house and they're on their way to work, are they covered there with that truck? How does all that work?
It's a very good question. So if you're on your own vehicle, you're going to work. That's not part of the job. That's not in the business. But if you go from your house to the job site and now from one job site to the next and you're on the clock, that second trip would be part of where the company can be pulled into that accident if you get there.
Because of the employee driving his personal truck.
Correct. Yeah. So the business can buy non-owned auto liability coverage, and that's something that should be covered on every standard policy. You really should have that.
So you're covering anybody who's driving their
company
car,
time.
company time.
Yep.
That they,
Yep.
That's important.
Yeah. So that's something that should be on most policies.
Okay. So what number 3? Let's talk about the people. Or I'm sorry, number 2 on the cars, vehicles. What other things that we gotta look out for?
Yeah, good question. I think when you're looking at bigger trucks, when you get your first bucket truck, when you get your first grapple truck, make sure the policy is listed that you have permanently attached equipment on there, right? So your cabin chassis, the VIN number that you put on the policy is going to be cabin chassis. All of the aftermarket parts, the bucket, the grapple, those are all added after they comes off the line in the international factory, or.
So does companies that are selling the insurance and do sometime they can lower the rate by not adding that? Is there any kind of people that kind of go,
you do have to be careful with that? Yeah.
And I'm like, I get the lowest rate, but all my forestry unit is not even covered.
Right. Yep. You got to be very careful. There's a part called the cost new on the insurance policy that needs to reflect the value of what that truck was new together, the total package.
Okay.
And that's what you need to make sure. And then along with the description should say with forestry attachment, with grapple saw, with whatever it is.
Guys, write this down. If you guys are listening to this, driving, when you get home, write this stuff down, especially, and go back. If you already have insurance, just make sure you're covered.
Yep.
Go back and look at all this, because if you're not, get that stuff fixed.
And unfortunately, the insurance company, because it's the law of large numbers, they have so many clients, so many policies. If you don't have it insured right, they might work with you, but they have every right not to.
Yeah.
Not morally, but legally.
Yeah.
So if you insure it one way and it should have been insured a different way, you can be screwed.
Now, our insurance companies, are they trying to mitigate that kind of conversation and talk? Are they kind of coaching you and making sure? Or
Well,
is there...
the agent should be the one doing that.
Okay.
The insurance company writes the policy, hands it off. So it's the agency that
The
really
agency.
should be talking to you about that.
Okay.
And you need to talk to the agent about it because the agent doesn't really know what you have. If the agent's not asking you what's on your truck or what other attachments do you have, that's a problem.
Or if they have no idea what a bucket truck is or what a grapple saw
Right, that's a problem.
is, you know?
But you should definitely bring it to the agent and say, hey, this is my equipment. This is what I do with it, right?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on equipment that you know of to make sure?
There are ways you can insure it for replacement cost or actual cash value that we don't need to really get into right now,
Yeah.
but that's a conversation with your agent on
Okay.
the value, on how you set that limit, and what you expect to get a claim check for if there
Gotcha.
is a bad
Okay.
accident.
Let's talk about number 3, people and
Yeah.
subcontractors.
Yeah. So the easiest way to say it, if you have an employee, you need workers' comp. Every state's a little different, of course, but if you have one employee, baseline, get a workers' comp policy. It covers their medical bills for an on-the-job injury, covers their lost wages. It pays for any rehabilitation cost if they can't do agriculture work because they lost a limb or can't physically do it anymore. And then it does pay a death benefit. So workers' comp pays those 4 benefits. They're all different throughout the state.
Say them one more time, the 4 benefits.
Yeah, lost wages,
Okay.
the medical bills from the on-the-job injury, a rehabilitation cost. So if you can't do tree work again,
Yeah.
they'll train you to get into another job that's similar in the total pay scale. And then a death benefit to your survivors,
Got it.
which is nothing.
What about if you're owner operator?
Yep.
You know, I'm going to take a draw, or
Yep.
is it the right way of, hey, let me put myself as an employee within the company?
So great point. And this is where we get to the yourself part.
Oh, I'm skipping it. Okay,
No, we
okay.
can go there.
No. I'll keep going.
All right.
We'll keep that in a row or in line in number 5. So that. So, okay.
But, so
what
if
else on there?
you have an employee, workers' comp, you got to have it. And it's all, usually if you're just starting out, you're going to get stuck in your state's assigned risk pool, the workers' comp pool. Basically, you don't have any history to show that you are a safe company. So you're going to pay a higher rate for probably 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, then you have 3 years of insurance history to show what you've had for injuries or what you haven't had. And then you can start getting competitive insurance rates. So you
After 3
unfortunately
years.
get stuck at the
'Cause
worst
they just
time.
don't know.
At the worst time because they don't know.
So in the beginning, when you're going to have workman's comp and you're going to have people working for you, you're paying usually the highest rate.
Right.
For the 3 years.
Yep.
And then keeping your nose clean, no incidents, no accidents. In 3 years, we can come back and say, hey,
Yep.
can I get it lowered?
Yep.
Now, what if you've had companies before, you have a great track record of, hey, I've worked for this company as a high level or as an owner. I'm starting a new company. Will they take and consider that?
Absolutely.
It's kind of your background,
I'm
your
glad
resume.
you mentioned that. Yeah, because that's where really you want to sell yourself and your past experience, your past history, and all what you have in place now, your safety program and your return to work and all the policies and procedures that you have in place. Because if you've done it with other companies, you're going to translate it to your new company.
Yeah.
So yes, what I mentioned about the 3 years is brand new, no experience, insurance experience.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have a past history with other businesses, that's the story. We want to build that story when we're going to the insurance company. And then there's more options available.
On this, when we talk about, well, I guess I'll talk about that myself. I do have a question on if you own a company,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Joe's concrete service.
Yep.
And then you own a tree care service.
Yep.
And it's Joe's tree care service. Is it true that your mod rate follows you even though you have different contracting license for each one?
Very good question. If you have common majority ownership,
Yes.
then yes, they do
So
get connected.
something happens in tree care, it affects you in concrete.
On your experience modification, yes. And now the experience modification, I want to explain that.
Yeah.
So when you're first starting out, you won't have enough background and history to get an experience modification. But over time, 3 years usually, you've paid enough in insurance premium that you now can qualify for an experience modification, which allows the insurance industry to essentially credit or surcharge you based on the claims that you had compared to everyone else in the industry for your same size. So you hear the words 1.0 is the experience modification. That's an average
1.0.
1.0. That means you are having the amount of injuries as expected in the industry. If you're below that, say a 0.8, 0.80, you're having less than expected, and now you're getting a credit on your premium. So you're getting 20% discount on your premium. Now, what you referred to, Phil, is common majority ownership of different entities, and the experience will combine. So your experience modification, if it's bad on the concrete side, will affect the tree side. And I've seen modifications as high as 2.8, meaning 280% higher than average.
But it might be one company that caused it for the rest.
Sure.
How does somebody mitigate that? Is it, hey, just don't have yourself be the majority stakeholder in the company?
That's really what they do, separate it out that way. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And majority is 51%.
Now, okay, so what if you started another company, kind of like a parent company, who owns that company, but you own the parent company? Does that still count? Even though the, let's say, Joe's parent company owns Joe Tree Service. Joe doesn't own it, but he owns the parent company. Is that still considered?
I think they would look at that as probably still common majority ownership, but I don't know exactly how that would be ruled.
I mean, there has to be some type of loopholes where I'd hate, people are starting multiple different companies, and all of a sudden their one company messes up everything for them.
Right.
So what's the gray area? What's the loopholes? If you do figure that out, please let me know.
Yeah, we'll do it.
From there. What else? Now let's talk about the subcontractors on the people side.
Yeah. So most tree care companies, when you're starting out, you don't want to bring on an employee for all the reasons that we know employees are, the costs and everything like that.
You're doing your ramp up. You're trying to get deals. You're visiting clients. You're selling. You can usually do the work yourself. You might need a small crew with you. You don't have a chipper. You don't have any of this stuff trying to get started. So normally you're going to subcontract. You're going to work with some other companies. You're going to find this stuff, but how do you insure them?
Yeah, so the first thing is general liability, meaning we didn't get to other people yet, but damage to other people, anybody you bring onto the job site, that's covered, period. But the injuries to your other people, to the workers, your subcontractors, typically is not going to be covered unless they're viewed as an employee. So the thing with subcontractors is really, what is the relationship? Are you bringing in someone that has their own business? Phil, you have your business, I have my business. You're coming to help me today. You do your own jobs, right?
Yeah.
But today you're helping me.
Yeah.
We're your subcontractor relationship there. But if you're only coming to work on my crew, you're always there 5 days a week, I just paying you cash, or I'm paying you 1099, saying you're not an employee, you're a subcontractor, but you're not doing other things, the state of wherever you are is going to look at that and say, wait a second, time out. Phil's not doing his own business, he's not doing his own equipment, he doesn't have other jobs, he's an employee, Eric. So now I'm going to be required to pay for your medical bills if you're injured on like workers' comp.
Okay.
I'm going to be required to pay for your payroll taxes, all that stuff, right? So the initial thing with subcontractors is, how is this relationship going to go? And will we actually set up a contract between us? Because you're going to come out on Tuesday next week to help me with that, pine removal. And it's going to be that day. I'm going to pay you whatever dollar figure for that day. That's the first thing. Our relationship is that day. Mm-hmm. And then
is that part of a contract? So every time they work with you, you got to at least have a very simple, maybe generic contract.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
this
be
is
much.
the day, this is what you're doing.
Yep.
That's our contract for that day.
Yep.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
That's important. I don't think a lot of people do that.
No, they don't.
They just have their subcontractors like, hey, can you show up tomorrow? They're like, yep, I'll be there.
Right. And then the other thing then is making sure that the subcontractor has their own coverage, right? Their own general liability, their own workers' comp coverage, so that when it gets to the point of Phil getting hurt on my job, well, no, Phil has his own coverage. He goes that way. It doesn't come to me because we set it up the right way from the beginning.
When you said set it up, it's on the contract it's set up?
Yep.
So do you guys provide, your company, Arborist, do you guys provide like generic contracts?
Yeah, we have a sample contract, but we have to give the disclaimer, get it returned by your, reviewed by your attorney.
This is what should probably be on it to have you covered.
Right, for sure.
For that. So somebody comes out to Joe's Tree Service, they're working, they get hurt. It's like, hey, Mike, you have your own insurance. This was agreed upon on this job. You're going to be covered if any accidents, if they damage the house or the fence or anything, it's covered by you and your insurance, but it's not on us. And if you don't have this contract in place, they could come after you.
Right.
And then also, to back up a little bit, is if you have somebody that's working with you 5 days a week that has their own company, you're 1099 in them, but they only work for you 5 days a week, 4.33 weeks a month, throughout the whole year, they're an employee. How does that insurance company figure that out or find that? What are you guys looking for to go, hey, that's an employee, man?
It's a great question. That's where I wanted to go next, too. So really, when you buy a workers' comp policy, you start the policy year, let's say April 1st.
Yeah.
April 1st to April 1st. It goes a full year. You estimate what payroll you're going to have. So if you're just starting out, you estimate $0. I'm going to have a ghost policy. You've heard people talk about ghost workers' comp policies. 0 payroll. I'm not going to have an employee. We go through the whole year. At the end of the year, you need to do a workers' comp audit where you submit all the paperwork, all the payments that you've made for labor, and they verify that individual or company that you paid has their own coverage. So at that point, if I paid $5,000 to Phil to work throughout the year, I got to prove that Phil has his own coverage. And if I don't, now my workers' comp policy charges me $5,000 of payroll, or the rate for $5,000 of payroll, and I have to write a check to pay the premiums for the backwards. So the best thing, though, well, in that case, if you were viewed as an employee and you still got hurt, my policy would have covered it because I had a policy. So my biggest advice to people is get the policy to start with. All these other details of their employee or a subcontractor will work themselves out. But if you don't have a policy to start with, you have no coverage.
Got it.
So if you have the policy, you have coverage right away.
Good.
Because you start a policy today, you hire 100 employees tomorrow, they're all covered. And you don't have to pay anything more until your audit. And you will pay. They will get the money. But at least you have the coverage right away.
That's good. Good advice. Good advice.
Does that help?
Yeah. No, it does. I'm learning a lot. I'm like, it was only supposed to be a 10-minute podcast, guys, but we're going to keep going because this is good. This is good stuff for you guys to listen into, take notes, especially being in the industry or just starting in the industry. These are things you need to know, that it's not the sexy thing. It's not the cool thing. It's not the things that you enjoy, but it has to be done. It's vital for the success of your company. Number 4, we talked about other people.
Yes. So this is the primary request we get for general liability, because that's what they're being requested by their customer. Hey, do you have cover? Do you have insurance? What they're asking usually is, do you have liability coverage if you screw up and drop the tree on my house? So general liability covers what our team does in a mistake and damaging other people's property. So general liability is the most broad coverage that you can get. The easiest probably available coverage. It can also get expensive if you start having general liability claims. You start dropping branches on corners of gutters and you have claims, then the premium goes up. So general liability basically protects other people from the actions that, happen from your crew.
Got it. Good.
And a part on that I think is often missed in the industry is professional liability, is the coverage that you can add on to your general liability that covers your advice, your mistakes, or your consulting. Almost like doctors have medical malpractice, arborists need that too, and we call it professional liability. So when you're out to the job site, there's always an element of consulting, right? No, that tree looks good now, or we should take off that other branch, or we should, move, do this or that. They're expecting some professional advice from the arborist that's out there. And if you make a mistake, you maybe misdiagnose something, you don't mention something, now there's an issue. They can come after you for the words that you say, not just the actions that you do.
Now, how do they prove that?
It's harder, but the main thing is you have to defend yourself. And by defending yourself, you got to hire an attorney. You got to state your case. And if you have the professional liability coverage, they're going to do that with you.
Got it.
And you're not on your own.
Okay. Good. So, especially if you're a consulting arborist out there.
Oh, big time.
And your words are everything. Your reports are everything. Now, does most consulting arborists have the professional liability?
The consulting arborists usually get it right away.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Got it. That's important. Did not know that. I'm a professional. That's another tip I like. Number 5, let's talk about insuring yourself.
Yep. So the biggest thing that people forget about is themselves. And really that's going to be, are you covered on workers' comp? You can be. if you want to be, you got to pay a premium. But are you going to be included as the owner, or are you going to exclude yourself? Are you going to have medical bills paid for by your health insurance for an on-the-job injury? Ask your health insurance company. I tell that to everybody. Ask your health insurance company, as the owner of the job, or of the owner of the company, am I covered if I get medical bills from an on-the-job injury?
Mm-hmm.
And most times you'll see no. They'll say no to that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're not going to get medical bills covered by your health insurance, where are you going? Back to your health insurance.
Yeah.
And then your lost wages or disability income is massive, right? If you're running your own business and you can't do your business, you need disability income coverage to pay the bills. So those are areas that we don't necessarily at our office do all the time. We direct them to other companies. That's not something that Arborist does, but it's something that's huge for your business because you are the business.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Good.
So
now, lastly, on these 5 that we talked about, understanding insurance, the 5 things to look for on equipment, cars, vehicles, people, other people, and yourself. Lastly, I want to discuss is what's the cost of this? How are we looking at just a general cost of knowing if you're getting a good deal or not?
It's a good question. It's a tough question to answer because it's state by state, right?
Okay.
But most general liability, if you're starting out, you're going to be in the $1,000 to $1,500 a year range for general liability, $1 million policy. Your content or your property, like we talked about, $300-400 for $5,000. Now the auto is a big range. Your driving record comes into play. The type of vehicle comes into play. The garaging address. So you could go from the same pickup truck that could be $1,200 for a year in Wisconsin. That will probably be $2,200 in California. Maybe $3,000 in Florida. So that ranges dramatically.
State by state.
State by state. But your driving record plays a big factor. Keep a clean driving record and you're going to be in a much better spot.
Yeah.
And then the type of vehicle that you have. The more expensive, the higher value is going to be more expensive to insure.
Now, when you have other drivers, are they putting the cost up based on that driver?
Based on the driving record, absolutely.
Gotcha.
It's one of the reasons why we focus on driver management is helping your team stay.
It's such a big cost.
Oh, yeah.
In everything you're doing.
On average, we usually see, for a tree care company, about $2,500 per unit across the country.
Got it.
Now, that's a bucket truck or a grapple to a small thing, on average.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's good.
If that helps you, I mean,
no, it does. It's just okay. Company, is this something where somebody's just starting off? I mean, are they shopping this every year? How do you find what kind of qualities are you looking for in a company to insured with?
Good question. So the first thing you want to know is make sure the agent that you're working with understands the tree care business, understand what you're doing, because the coverage you need, like that professional liability, there's certain things that you need to have that an agent that understands the business knows what to get you. American Family, State Farm, they're not set up to insure tree care companies. They do sometimes, we see it, but they're not set up for it. So make sure that they understand, the tools and the equipment that you use. And you can do that by actually qualifying them by asking those questions.
Okay.
Hey, do you know what arboriculture is?
Yeah, they're like, yes, you guys plant trees.
Right.
You're like, all right, next person.
Yep. And then, because there are a number of agencies across the country that do specialize just in the tree care world. So do the Google search, look for tree care insurance, arborist insurance.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, talk to them directly and find out what the agent can do to help you, not just place the insurance coverage.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, how can they help you grow and be a better business?
Good. But do you have any secret tips you want to share before we end this show? Any secret little, hey guys, if you're doing this, here's what I would ask, here's what to do.
Yeah,
that's kind of inside knowledge.
Inside knowledge is really what we started with. The insurance company needs to make a profit to pay the claims that they promised. So if you can show them why you're not going to have claims, you're going to get a more favorable rate. Show them how you have your experience, what credentials you've done, what type of preventative measures, from a program standpoint, from a safety program, from a return to work, from driver training, any school that you went to that gave you different knowledge that sets you apart from the rest. Build your story so that you can sell yourself to the insurance
How do I build that story? Am I creating a resume?
It could be that, but just the think about what you've done in your life that can help you not have an insurance claim, have an accident.
Yeah.
And that's really the message that you want to give. The more information you can, this is counterintuitive. The more information you can give the insurance company to make them feel comfortable with you and your company, the better they're going to give they're going to give you more favorable rates, because they're going to understand who you are. A lot of people don't want to give the insurance company information because they're going to think they're going to just raise my rates. It works the opposite. If you're working and building that relationship,
More information, the better.
yeah, on how you're not going to have an injury, how you're not going to have a mistake, an accident.
Good.
That's my secret tip.
That's a good one. Well, there you guys go. Understanding insurance, how it works. There's probably about 20 other shows that we can have, and really breaking down each one of these a lot more. But this is just a high level for you guys. If they have any questions or anything, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can reach out. ArboriskInsurance.com is our website.
Okay.
We actually do a weekly
ArborisInsurance.com. ArborisInsurance.com.
Yep. We do a weekly business tip, actually. So every week we're sending out a business tip to our database, so you can sign up for that.
Okay.
That's business in general, not just insurance, but ArborisInsurance.com has a ton of resources on it. We're always at these shows, as you know, and we're involved in the industry, so please reach out.
There you guys go. If you guys have any questions, there's business tips, on a weekly basis. If you guys have questions, reach out to Eric and his team at ArborRiskInsurance.com for you. But let me go over everything one more time, guys. We talked about the equipment. We talked about cars and the vehicles. We talked about people, subcontractors that are on your team. We talked about other people. And we talked about yourself from there. So that's your basic 5 things of understanding insurance and how each one of those works, and what an insurance company looks for when they're talking to you and if they're going to insure you on that. So great stuff. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Guys, if you guys learned something today that you didn't know yesterday, guess what? You got to pay the fee. And that fee is to share the show. Tag us, like us, share us. Put it out there for other people to learn what Eric got to share with us today. Again, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
And to everybody that's out there, continue to elevate the standard of our industry through safety, training, and innovation. Till next time, see you guys. Bye.